Welcome back to the next episode. I think this is episode 5, is it not? Of our podcast, Late Breakers podcast. Ladies and gentlemen, we are looking good. Yeah, it is episode 5. We just concluded yesterday with the Qatar Grand Prix, where it was quite the eventful one. Quite a bit of changes that the FIA managed to enforce for the weekend, which could result in quite a bit of changes to what happened overall in the actual race. It really did impact the race overall quite heavily, and you know, we have today with us, joining with us today, we have Nashim. How you doing, man?
Not too bad in yourself. How are you?
I'm doing good. I'm doing all good today.
Other than the fact that it's an absolute scorcher.
Oh yeah, no. I honestly feel like we during the week and that race we felt exactly how the drivers felt a little bit in those high 50 degrees Celsius weather. Cause it eats you alive. It honestly does.
It really does.
And
And we will definitely be getting onto the epic race that happened, because at the end of it, you could see those drivers were completely drenched. It was like it's like they jumped into a swimming pool, got out, and just came and did an interview.
I 100% agree. And you know, it's funny because even Lando himself said, you know, the not teams, a few drivers almost passed out at the end of the race.
Yeah.
At the end of it, like, damn. We even got to see Lance Stroll walk straight towards the ambulance after he
Well,
got out his car.
apparently Lance Stroll was actually passing out while he was driving during the race, because that's what he said during his interviews.
Yeah, no. Blurry vision with like 20 laps to still go of the race.
Yeah.
It's absolutely.
I mean, that's why we'll get onto it. Let's just get our intro in, and then we'll start discussing how the actual breakdown of the race went.
Yeah. Overall, as we'll see just now, there's a lot to talk about if you want to talk about the race. I don't know. I think let's get to the race shenanigans last, because we had the
Indeed.
first we had the qualifying shenanigans, which if we're looking here, Max Verstappen obviously starting on pole position. Then
Yep.
P2 George Russell, which was technically supposed to be a McLaren. Both positions of P2 and 3 were supposed to be McLarens of Lando Norris and Oscar Piastri, but their lap
Okay,
times,
but we're talking about track limits.
yeah, they got deleted for track limits. That's
Hey, we've said it before and we'll say it again. The racetrack is the racetrack, guys.
You keep it in the white lines if you're unable to.
The racetrack doesn't move. The racetrack doesn't move. It's the exact same place every time.
It really is. But I mean, you even heard Lando say it on the radio. You know,
Yeah.
he's so frustrated at himself that
Yeah.
he couldn't get it up and running.
But I mean, we've all seen it. There's so much time there, so it's just
You know,
they just
it's very dirty how much time sits there. You know,
yeah.
over the weekend, I think it was actually on Friday. Mr. I
I
am
mean,
Speed.
me too.
Mr. I am
We
Speed.
saw it.
We tried it. We tried our hand at the racetrack. Oh no, it wasn't. It was my nemesis and myself. We had our hand at playing ranked F1, and you know, going outside into those track limits gains you so much time and speed that you know, I am Speed called it when we had our previous episode. You know, there's so much track limits violations. You're going to see it there because it's just faster, you know, than to do anything else, right? Which means that just because those two were unable to keep it in the white lines, Lewis Hamilton and George Russell got promoted up into P2 and 3 for the qualifying. And
Absolutely.
it's just beautiful from them. Couldn't ask for more than that, really. Fernando Alonso up into P4. Actually, a decent drive from him. From the slump Aston Martin's been sitting in for the past few races after the summer break. summer break for them. P5, Charles Leclerc, which was a little bit surprising because considering I was expecting Carlos Sainz.
I think we all were. I mean, Carlos has had Charles' number quite often this qualifying, but we all know Charles is a very good qualifier. If anyone is going to be able to wrangle that extra tenth up the car, it would be Charles. So in that case, I do give a lot of credit to Charles in the sense that he's an amazing driver on that hot lap, and we'll discuss further. But he had a very consistent and good race.
He did. He really actually did. It was a brilliant drive from Charles, although he didn't have the pace as the rest of his peers. Somewhat else. Then P6. The man who should have been second, Oscar Piastri, snubbed off his pole. He's not pole, second position.
Yeah.
Unfortunate, couldn't keep it in the white lines.
P7. Yeah.
P7.
But it's really tough because I mean, McLaren got knocked off the podium real quick, and that was really sad for me because I was like, damn. There goes McLaren's chances of a double podium.
Yeah, but it really hurts.
It does really.
It does. Pierre Gasly in P7, which I was actually surprised by to see that the Alpines were going to be so far up. But then again, there is nobody better to put up there. But then again, we've seen someone like Hulkenberg sneak his way in, dropping one of the Alpines out, as well as Alexander Albon could have tried to knock another Alpine out there. But this is where we see them at right now, which is quite impressive from them, and quite a beautiful drive overall. Well, qualifying for both Alpine drivers, Esteban and Pierre. Pierre just getting 2/10 faster than his teammate by just winning. I think it was a few corners, but I think most drivers. I think even if you go back and look at it, I think there were only 2 drivers who didn't suffer lap deletions, and that was Max Verstappen and Lewis Hamilton.
Well, we'll get onto it, but there's a reason why Lewis Hamilton didn't get neat.
Yeah. we both know. We'll get to it when we start talking about the actual. Once we get it. No, I mean, actually, it's qualifying we're speaking about now, so we could potentially go into it.
We're talking about the standings from the start of the race, and then we'll actually talk about how everyone finished.
Yeah. We got Valtteri Bottas. This was the surprise victory for me that I was quite impressed with. Was Valtteri actually making it through into Q3, and he snuck his way in quietly like the silent assassin he is. And although he ended up being well off of the pace, that's almost 2 seconds ish slower than Max. It's more like 1 point something slower than Max. But
yeah, I mean, like it was an interesting quali session for him. So finishing where because I really want to talk about where he finished. So
hey, we can definitely get into where he finished. But just a quick moment. Let's first run through everyone's starting positions, and then we'll go on to the race results for everyone. And we'll get to him. P10, Lando Norris. At DNF.
Unfortunately, well, not a DNF, but a track limits violation, which kind of it's so upsetting because he really had such a good time before that.
Yeah.
And I mean, we saw that he was standing in the top 3, and then just that little mistake, and then he got knocked further down, and that time deletion actually just cost him a lot because he ended up setting no time and then had to start from P10, which compromises you a lot in the race. But, a lot of drama can happen and put you in a better position.
Yeah, definitely. It was unfortunate that he just couldn't keep it in the white lines, which just resulted with that no time put on the board. Which in the FIA standards, that's a DNF. Did not. Oh, it should actually be a DNS because technically he did not start with a lap time. But that's just in fake technicalities. In P11 though, we have Yuki Tsunoda, who just got through. He was actually quite close with Yuki Tsunoda because if we look at a 25-3, the next guy he was just behind Bottas, and I can't filter by Q2. Behind Charles, behind the rest of his pair. Obviously he's ahead of everyone else there. But he just narrowly missed out with Valtteri Bottas there. Because he was actually P10. Valtteri was P10 in Q2, and then Yuki managed to just miss out by the smallest of margins right there.
Yeah, it's really tough. Yuki Tsunoda has had a tough couple weeks, hey. Especially when you see the fact that Lawson has actually been qualifying really consistently and really at a really good level. I think it's a bit easier for. I think Yuki's getting a bit too comfortable, but not showing a level of consistency that he showed earlier on in the season.
Yeah. It's. I think it's just overall the development as well of the car, because we still see that brilliance of performance out of Yuki, but it doesn't translate well into the race because overall the race pace of that car isn't the greatest thing ever. And
yeah, the race pace really does let it down, but we know what Yuki is capable of, so I don't know, because I want him to be able to extract a little bit more out of the car, but maybe that's all he can get out of the car.
yeah, at least we hope. And I hope that next year can be a better year for him, where they could have a better start. But moving on, we have P12 Carlos Sainz, who we thought was the best Ferrari driver right now. Struggled on this track quite a bit. Not able.
Yeah, he had a tough weekend.
He really tough one.
Yeah, he I don't know. I don't think he was able to carry any good practice through it, because a sprint weekend, it's a little bit messy, and then just going into qualifying on the Friday after one session when the track is completely different. Yeah, he just never really got to grips with it this weekend. But I expect him to do a lot better in the US because he knows the track. He's got a lot of experience there. I think he'll be a lot more comfortable there. And unfortunately, he didn't even race this weekend. Well, he didn't even race on Sunday.
Yeah, that was the saddest part, was because of that fuel leak that he had on his car, and Ferrari were not able to fix it with the enough time. Which
yeah, super unfortunate. I mean, we would have loved to see Carlos come through the field because we would have expected him to get past Yuki, and then, I mean, Lando would probably also have a really good start because on the no, actually, yeah, I think Carlos would have had a really good start, man, because we see the chaos that happened early on in the race, and in the race start, we know Carlos likes to keep his nose clean, so. And he's a strategist. He would have been optimizing on that strategy for Ferrari.
I'll come back on to Carlos' strategy for a moment, a little bit later on, because we know what happened with Carlos. Yeah, For me,
Yeah.
the other thing was that this links into the next driver who was in 13th, Sergio Perez. If you go and
Yeah.
look at a certain man, there's a certain ex teammate of Lewis Hamilton who happened to take a selfie of a Red Bull and a bit of a Ferrari team, Ferrari pit box. And if anyone here is superstitious, I'm not saying it happened, but it happened. You know, uh, Nico did take a selfie with the Ferraris in his background and a Red Bull, which I believe was Sergio Perez. It could have been Max, but looking at Sergio's performance, yeah, I think it was Sergio because
Uh,
it's not.
this doesn't help his narrative. This does not help Nico's narrative.
It doesn't. I mean, one
Um,
driver can't even start the race. The other driver has an abysmal race entirely. He's qualifying. He can't get out of Q2. Nico needs to stop taking photos.
Yeah. What you need to do is launch an investigation to see if all of Checo Perez's mistakes have been because Nico has taken photos of the car.
Oh, I would cry. I would absolutely cry for such yo.
Because then if I'm Checo, I'm telling Nico, don't come close to my car, don't take any photos near it.
Stay away from the Red Bull pit
Stay
box.
away from me. Stay away from me.
I don't want nothing to do with you. You keep cursing me out
Dude.
here. But
Man.
to talk more about Sergio, I don't know what is going on. He feels like he's lost his confidence entirely with the car, because we know he's really good with the car, but it just doesn't seem like his confidence is there to just handle the car and or believe what the car is capable of doing, and so he's not getting anywhere, and it's frustrating him. We can see it, like in Japan we saw how it actually frustrated him that he's not able to put the car in the same places where Max could put it up into P1 and P2. So, to qualify Q2 again.
Yeah, especially when your world champion teammate is being crowned 3-time world champion, and now you're just watching it, and you're basically a passenger at this point, because everyone's bonuses are secure because Max is going to keep winning because that's what Max does. But the thing is, I mean, it's gonna be close. It'll be close, depending on how Mercedes respond to their situation, their Nico Lewis situation. They will hopefully be able to get their shit together, and Lewis can actually score enough points to be able to catch Perez, or hopefully, because it doesn't seem like Perez is going to get to grips with the car. It seems like the car's drifting further away from him, and it's really difficult for him. You know, what it reminds me of is like Danny Ricciardo.
Yeah.
It's the car's just not working for him. It's just not. It's not. It in the beginning maybe it was built evenly, but now it's leaning in a direction that doesn't suit his driving style.
100%. Absolutely painful for him.
Yeah.
P14, Alex Albon, which is not bad from Alex, you know. This is a Williams. I thought he was going to have a lot more pace, but actually, Perez suffered a lot from track limits as well.
Yes,
he suffered as well as Alex.
He suffered all weekend from it. I mean, yeah. You're very right. Both of them did have a lot of issues with track limits, and it seems like not everyone was able to get on top of like turn 5. Really, turn 5 is just where a lot of penalizing was happening, and like turn 5, turn 13, I think turn 11 had a lot of issues as well. But that's because, again, the driver's complaining about the new track limits, essentially, on the new painted line.
It does hurt them overall, but it exists there for a reason. Get to grips with it.
Yeah.
And keep the car in.
I mean, yeah, because I mean, I don't really understand what exactly is going on with Pirelli and the tires, but we did discuss this before, where we said we need to bring in other tire manufacturers.
Yeah, there needs to be more time
There
manufacturing.
really needs to be, even if it's just one other tire manufacturer. Bring in Michelin or Goodyear or someone like that, and let's have a little tire wars go on.
Yeah. We'll add up some spice to the race, which I have other theories on how we could add spice to the race there as well. But quickly, let's move on to finish up the qualifying at least. P15, Nico
Hmm.
Hulkenberg. And he had okay start qualifying for himself. Wasn't the greatest. He was still quite far off of the pace in general.
Well, I mean, he's 8/100ths, wait, 8/10ths of a second off Alex Albon. That's not a bad time. I mean,
Mm.
it's, I mean, look, if you look at it, it's about half a second quicker than Logan Sargent, and who's P16. That's a decent gap. I think he's extracting everything he can out of the car. Next week, well, not next week, but the next race, they are getting their upgrades. So hopefully he's able to push it and sneak his way into Q1. I mean
Q3.
Q3, sorry.
Yeah, definitely. P16, Logan Sargent. He.
Indeed. Mm,
He. Um,
yeah.
I mean, look, he beat Lance Stroll. I don't know if that's supposed to be a feat or not, but he beat Lance Stroll.
Well, it doesn't seem like Logan Sargent is here on money. It seems like he may have some sponsorship, but he I don't know. I don't know why Williams like him so much. Maybe he's just a genuine nice guy. The way, like, you could see the team care about him the way they spoke to him during the race,
Mm-hmm.
because he did have a retirement, and not because he crashed the car this weekend. He parked it because he genuinely was unable to drive. And I respect that, because you run the risk of not just hurting yourself but other people as well. So yeah, um I know a lot of people might want to insult him. That is not the right thing to do. We should be commending him for deciding to take himself out, because he didn't want to be a risk to himself and others.
Yeah, no, there should never be any insults thrown to him for his actions during the race, because
Mm.
the thing is, if you're not feeling well, don't.
Yeah,
It's not a thing of, oh,
it's not good. Yeah,
you're weakling or anything like that. No,
no, no.
you're not feeling well. This is like peak motorsports. The G forces and everything you're feeling it. You can easily cause a big mistake.
Yeah,
And he chose the smartest option to do. I mean, when we had other drivers here as well who had some issues with the cars as well. I mean, Esteban Ocon admitted that lap 15, 16, and 17 he threw up in his helmet. You
yeah,
know,
yeah, yeah, he did.
so it's like, hmm, it's acceptable.
It's really tough. It's really tough.
Yeah.
I mean, and Esteban Ocon also said that that we need to have this race in December, because having it in October is not okay.
It's way too hot. Like
It's way, way too hot.
and yeah, we'll get on to the temperatures and these things a little bit later. Lance Stroll, absolute disappointment in his attitude
Ye-
for most of this weekend. Absolute, like you do not like we I saw on social media people, and I agree with him. It's just like he acted like a spoiled brat. You know,
He really does.
like
He, it's the type of behavior where you act like a toddler,
mhm.
and you throw your toys, you push things, you knock things over, you push people, just, yeah, like acting like a petulant teenager, and then walking up to the interviewers and acting like
A
an
pretentious sod.
actual toddler, and a spoiled brat, not taking like any sort of
Accountability.
like responsibility, accountability, or being responsible for his actions, because he did assault someone just now. He should, if he didn't want to talk, he shouldn't have come and had the conversation.
Yeah.
He
It's,
should have cooled down for a little bit and then gone to to
the
have
boss.
the conversation or
Exactly.
the interviews or whatever.
Then, yeah, there's not much else to talk about his performance there.
Mhm.
Liam Lawson, first time round on the track, suffered quite
Yeah,
a bit. I think you can see it in his lap time.
yeah, you definitely
126.
can. He struggled. He struggled quite a bit, and it's really unfortunate because it is his last race in the team now, and didn't particularly go well on Saturday. Didn't go well on Sunday, but well, except for well on Saturday it okay. Saturday's qualifying didn't go well, but the Saturday sprint kind of did.
Yeah, it looked
Yeah.
up for him there.
So yeah, he had a very like an up and down weekend.
Absolutely. It was
Yeah.
quite a bit of an event for him this weekend. Then P19, Kevin Magnussen, the house driver, unfortunately couldn't get to grips with the car in the slightest. We could hear some of the frustrations from him that he
Yeah.
had with the car, and he was just him and Hulkenberg were very vocal actually this weekend about how horrible the car felt overall. And yeah, I mean 127 0 on the dot. He also had a lot of track deletions, laps deleted, and to end with the 127, that's like a banker lap, you know.
Yeah, it really is. It really, really is.
I mean, in Q1, the fastest lap we had was a 125.0, I believe it was. Yeah, 125.0 from the man himself, Max Verstappen. And
I'm curious if Kevin Magnussen had the not how many lap deletions he had, because I know he had a few of them.
I mean, the thing is, he did 9 laps, right?
Yeah.
And in 9 laps, he only managed to get this. The fastest lap he could do was a 127.0, which is 2 seconds off of what Max could have done in the same amount of opportunities.
Yeah.
So, and I do understand it still is a Haas, but when your own teammate is also a second ahead of you,
That's a bit, well, a little more than.
yeah, it's 1.1. Oh no, yeah, because
No.
Nico's 125.9, so it's 1.1.
Are we looking at the quali time?
Yes, quali times. In Q1, Nico Hulkenberg's time was a 125.9. Kevin Magnussen's was 127.0. That's what he was able to do in the race.
I see a 125.7.
For
Maybe I have.
for Kevin. No, Kevin.
Yeah.
Pretty sure then if you 127. Well, no, you said 125. No, Kevin didn't get a 120. That's most likely one of his deleted laps.
Oh yeah, that was a deleted lap.
Yeah. So, yeah, unfortunate for him. And the last drive in P20 before we go over to the actual race, and let's do a quick sprint through the actual shootout qualifying. Zhou in P20 did not look like he had any grips with the car, and I expected nothing from him this weekend.
I also expected nothing from
him this weekend. And we'll get into, like, if you just look at that result alone, you didn't expect much. As we go and look quickly through the Qatar Sprint shootout results, right?
Mm-hmm.
In P20, Logan Sargent started there with a 2 minutes. He didn't even really set on a flyer, right?
Yep.
P19, Kevin Magnussen. P18, Yuki Tsunoda. P17, Alex Albon. P16, Lance Stroll. P15, Guan Yu Zhou. This is where I wanted to say a little bit more this is the part that surprised me, was that he was 20th for the actual race, but now he managed to get up 5 positions with just the different qualifying. So I was impressed with that. Liam Lawson, P14. P13, Valtteri Bottas. P12, Lewis Hamilton. Another Q2 outing for Lewis, which was quite sad to see. P11, Pierre Gasly. P10, Esteban Ocon. P9, Fernando Alonso. P8, Sergio Perez. P7, Nico Hulkenberg, which is the other surprise. Like, Nico managed to pull up his pace with just 1 day's difference. But I mean, I think the track was more rubbed in at that point. P6.
I agree with that. Yeah.
P6, Charles Leclerc. P5, Carlos Sainz. P4, George Russell. The shocking part, Max Verstappen in P3. That's the lowest start Max has had. No, I lie. Max has had a lower start. But
Yes, he has. Yes, he has.
yeah, Singapore. I forgot Singapore existed. But
Mm-hmm.
nonetheless, P3 for Max Verstappen here. P2, Lando Norris. And P1, Oscar Piastri, which was a big shocker. Absolute shocker. Piastri taking pole position. Which was...
Yep. Piastri took pole position and he took it home,
Yeah,
which was so fun to watch.
it really was. Sprint grid order. Oscar Piastri, we see he won it. which
Yes,
is
he did.
absolutely beautiful from his side there. Lando Norris secures the second place for him. Yeah.
He does, but here's the thing: like now, both his teammates have won before he has. They've tasted that top step before Lando has. It's got to be so jarring and annoying to him because he's the one putting in so much work in order to develop the car and make sure it's able to be competitive. And he's been developing the car the whole season. Then here comes Oscar, and he wins.
Yeah. It must be frustrating for the fans.
It must be so frustrating.
Yeah, but
I guess they work well together. It seems they have a good respect for one another, and they seem to have a great understanding. They're both really quick. They're both really young. They both have a lot of drive to be better. So I expect a lot from them. I rate they're going to keep being quick and keep excelling, and hopefully in the next race they're also able to keep the pace and keep that consistency and go forward and keep challenging. Hopefully they might be able to win a race an actual Grand Prix this season.
yeah, it will be. So I just want to correct myself there. I was looking at the wrong thing. Yeah, it was the starting grid for the sprint shootout. But regardless, Oscar won it. Max was in second place with just 1.8 behind Oscar. But Oscar did a phenomenal drive to keep Max away from him.
He did. I mean, it's one of those drives where you go, okay, maybe this kid actually can be a world champion, because that was a great, like, as a rookie to be able to be that consistent and hold a world champion like Max behind you and be able to keep those lap times and not bin it and not like make big mistakes. So much respect for him.
Absolutely, so much respect. P3, Lando Norris, we spoke about him and his performances. Hurts for him. P4, George Russell. P5, Lewis Hamilton. Right. You know what's crazy is my predictions were almost perfect had Piastri not won. Right. I predicted that it was gonna be Max Verstappen P1, the 2 McLarens in P2 and 3, and then both Mercedes 4 and 5. And when Oscar left Max in the dust, I was like, oh, yes, Oscar's gonna win. Someone else's win. Great news. But I'm like, damn, my predictions are awful. Fuck. It annoys me.
But it's also such a fun thing to happen, especially when someone as young as Oscar gets that pole and tastes that excitement. I mean, he's got to be super excited, eh? Because if you look at where Alpine is right now, and you're not sure what's going on there, and what direction they're going, and you look at how McLaren's able to handle and turn around and be able to be so competitive right now, he's got to be super excited to actually be here and not at Alpine.
Oh, 100%. You would like. The thing is, if you think about it, he was a second place option for them, which was absolutely disgusting, and he made a great choice to leave them there.
Yeah,
then and there. So P4, George Russell, good drive from George. I think Mercedes should have learned a lot about what was going to happen for the race from the sprint, but it seems like they're still lacking a little bit more strategy in there.
I mean, they even touched each other in Japan, though. So that's the thing. Like, this discussion should have happened. But also, Toto's been away on. He had surgery. I'm not too sure what surgery, but he's been away for the past few weeks. So
they got to run rampant without a stern figure telling them, guys.
Yeah, indeed.
Just hold up. Lewis Hamilton made a great.
After the crash happened, we didn't hear Toto going ham. Because he would have.
Oh, he probably would have. They didn't even cut to him in the garage, which is a little bit sad.
Not at all. Not at all. So he wasn't there. So yeah, he must have been seething where he was.
Yeah, Lewis Hamilton, great recovery drive for a P5 finish. Right.
Indeed it was.
He looked like he was actually the fastest driver out on the grid on the sprint race. I won't lie. He was moving through the field like.
Yeah, there were a couple of times where Lewis has looked very quick this weekend, but also we'll get on to what happened a little later on. I mean, I'm still very shocked because it's one of those things where you're like, he scored in every race this season so far until that moment, and you're just like, man, Lewis, man, what happened, buddy?
His teammate happened. But anyway, P6, Carlos Sainz, he did a good drive for Ferrari there. P7, Alex Albon.
Yeah.
Benefited.
Yes, the dark horse.
The dark horse benefited off of some people's faults there with time penalties and scored 2 points. Not 1, but 2 points for himself this weekend.
2 points for his team.
It's just beautiful.
Trying to get that bonus money for his team.
Oh yeah, he's getting that money, extra money. And the thing is, he did it, and he got past Fernando Alonso. Like, Fernando ended in P8, which is still a good drive for Fernando.
Yeah.
He obviously not where he wants to be, but regardless, a good drive overall. Pierre Gasly, P9, P10, Valtteri Bottas. If it was for more points, Mr. Anonymous, he would have scored extra points this weekend. Yuki Tsunoda, P11. Charles Leclerc dropped off the map into P12. But then again, he was put on that soft tire strategy, which is what screwed him entirely over. Kevin Magnussen, P13. Guan Yu Zhou, P14. And you see, this is the thing. Zhou was slowly climbing up the field day by day. He went from Friday starting last to the sprint shootout starting 15th and then gained a position, which is still a good thing by the end of the day. P15.
Indeed it is. I mean,
yeah.
No, go ahead.
No, I was just gonna move on to P15. So if you have any other comments you want to talk about, Joe.
No, I don't. You're welcome to move on. I'm happy to move on.
Oh, no. Okay. Then Lance Stroll, P15. Then, can we talk about the shenanigans that went on? Right. First thing first, I want to actually jump to the bottom. Liam Lawson. I forgot what happened to Liam. Did Liam just have a did not start? No, he got a DNF.
DNF, did not finish.
Yeah. Did Liam bin it?
I can't remember. I can't remember the sprint per se. I think he got stuck in the gravel.
Did he? Because he wasn't part of the. Because he was the first DNF of the race. So, yes. He made a mistake. I remember now.
Yeah.
He made a mistake himself and got hit with a little too much oversteer, and overcorrected, sent himself into the gravel and beached himself, which
Yes, he did.
unfortunate from himself. Logan then proceeds to copy him and beaches himself as well.
Yep.
And then we got the three drivers in question: Nico Hulkenberg, Esteban Ocon, and Sergio Perez. Now,
It decided to make a sandwich.
while this was, I 100% think this was not Sergio's fault at all. I think
I agree.
Sergio and Hulkenberg were caught up in something that shouldn't have happened.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Whereby Esteban Ocon caused the whole thing by thinking that he's cleared Hulkenberg. Like, he's got mirrors on the left of him, right? He can clearly, if he just looks over to the left of him, like, because the thing is, we're talking about turn 5, right? So with turn 5, you're turning right. Oh, sorry, not left. You must be looking more right. You're turning right already, right? You can easily just take a glance over again to see, is he there? And then get your eyes back on the road to be like, cool.
I mean, you say that, but you're not a racing driver in an F1 car for real. So we can't.
Yeah, okay, fair enough. But I would assume.
I mean, yes, we would maybe say that, but I don't know. I mean, we've sat in the VR system in I Am Speed's racing rig, and you know, it's really hard to see in that thing, dude. Like you are deep inside the guts of in the bowels of this car, and kind of looking over your shoulder doesn't happen. Like, I can only see, because you've got a helmet on, you've got the hands device, all of that. My head can only turn so far. Like, my mirrors are tiny. It's like, I didn't see you. Like, the wheels are too big. Like Max is even complaining about that. So, I think it might have just it's a mistake, but the unfortunate reality is that Ocon makes a lot of mistakes.
Yeah, it is, and I put it solely for him that he caused the whole incident. I didn't even see anything if the FIA said that he's the person at fault, because that is penalty points for causing an incident right there. And it sucks because Sergio was trying to do something and he got caught up in shenanigans that he should never have been a part of in the first place. Like, he was a passenger. Nico just got squeezed between the two drivers. He got sandwiched.
Yeah, he did.
There's nothing that he could do, right? And they're talking about sandwiches, right? We can speak about the actual race result now. Do you think we can go over to this?
Ooh,
and
man.
The first incident I want to speak about is lap 1. Do you want to go first, or should I go first about lap 1?
No, go ahead. I'm gonna let you lead, man. Go ahead.
Okay. My very first thoughts when I saw it happen, I was just like, Nico Lewis is back. Because
you and me both.
I got flashbacks back to Spain. I got flashbacks back to Italy, and I was just like, guys, when is Mercedes gonna step in to actually stop this? Toto said before, he's got measures in place to prevent a Nico Lewis from happening again, but it's silently happening in front of our eyes right now. Sure, it's not looking as public as it is, right? But it's happening.
Yeah, I mean, here's the thing. I don't think it was on purpose. I think that they just both, again, just didn't see each other. But I also feel like Lewis went in there way too half-cocked. He should have been a little bit more patient, because he did have the softs. He would have been able to attack, and I don't know, man. I feel like he risked way too much for not massive results. And as we saw, he DNF'd.
For it.
And then also spun his teammate.
No, yeah, definitely. And the thing is, right, I saw a post after the race. Lewis did speak to the media team, because he was the first driver to speak to the media after the race. And he even said himself, he takes full responsibility for the crash.
Yeah,
and it
he
was
did.
his fault. Although I can see that it still hurts him. Like that was getting that result hurt him so much. You can
Yeah,
see it in his
it did.
face, and he was just absolutely defeated. Even when he after the race, when he went to apologize to George, you could see that the DNF affected him severely. But he still went to go apologize to George, and they seem to have at least in the public, a stable relationship for now. But
Yeah,
it's
it would appear. It would appear that way. So I hope it doesn't boil into what was Nico and Lewis in 2015 and 2016, because we don't need that for Mercedes. Mercedes need to be competitive next season so they can actually win the world championship for one of their drivers. The unfortunate problem is that they're going to need to pick a number one and a number two so that that person gets preferential treatment and actually wins the drivers, and you make sure that your number two driver is following right behind them so that you win the constructors too.
yeah, exactly that. Which is just a quick word about P20, which was Carlos Sainz. Did not start, had a fuel leak. Ferrari couldn't fix it in time. Unfortunate for him there. Lewis Hamilton, P19, we're speaking right now about the crash that happened in turn 1, which sent him flying, as well as his teammate spun around and got sent back to the back of the grid. But then to move on from the Mercedes drama, because it's going to boil down, and there'll be some talks later on about it, but we'll see what happens at Kota, because Kota is going to be a whole nother story as well.
Indeed, it will. Indeed, it will. It's a track that Lewis Hamilton has won many times, and we'll be looking to try and rekindle some magic there.
Mm.
But we have seen, I mean, Georgia's got Lewis in qualifying a fair amount of times now, and well, it seems as though he's slowly starting to get better grip.
Of the car.
He's slowly starting to become like get better grips with the car.
Mm-hmm.
So it's just one of those things. But then Lewis on a Sunday is always just really, really quick.
So to give the full stats, before this race, Lewis and George were evenly matched in terms of head-to-heads in qualifying, with 8-8 each.
Huh, interesting.
So they're the most even out of everyone, and Fernando Alonso to Stroll is the. I mean, do I even need to say it? The only time Stroll has really out-qualified Fernando was when Fernando was actually just out in general.
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
Yeah, it's just this, back to the matter there. But then P18, Logan Sargent, valiant effort and valiant drive from the man. He just couldn't deal with the conditions he was dealt here in Qatar, and I commend him for it. It's not the easiest race, and
no, not at all, not at all.
If you're not feeling well, man, it's best you'd rather just don't go through and force yourself to suffer even more and more. It's absolutely stupid to try to do that.
Yeah, because you can not only potentially hurt yourself, you can potentially hurt other people too. Yeah. So that's never good. That's never good to risk something like that.
Not in this.
So a lot of respect for him for pulling out. I know he didn't want to send as such. I mean, we heard him when he spoke to James the first time, and James was like, "Look, dude, you can retire the car. There's no problem if you do." And he was like, "No, let me do this. I can do this." It's like, "I promise you, James, I can do this." Like, you could hear it in his voice. Like, Logan really wants to be here, and he's fighting for his future. So it's one of those things where you're kind of like, okay, I see the humanity in him now. I see the humanity in the kid. I shouldn't be so harsh. It's his first season, but yeah, it's just when there are other drivers that have like more decorated resumes and have shown a lot of competitiveness, it's just really hard to just sit there and go, where is this going?
Yeah, like it does make it a bit harder on him, but I have to give Williams also their props, because I mean, you could see that James was pretty accepting of Logan's conditions and was like, look, bro,
Mhm.
if you're not feeling well, let's retire the car, man. Don't force
Yeah.
yourself. And James was fully on board with it, and that's a good trait to have out of a team boss, where you know he's on your side. He's not gonna be an asshole to say no. You must finish this race, right? If you're not feeling well, it's best you don't continue from there.
Yep, 100% agree with you.
Yeah. P17, Liam Lawson. Yeah, we could hear from the end. When he was driving back to the pits, he had quite a bit of concerns, and he just was not feeling the car. He even said he didn't know where it went away from him, as well as the conditions just ate him alive. Right, most drivers here were laying on the floor after the race, which is that hurts. You know that
That's
really,
yeah, it's really tough. It's a really tough conditions to be racing in, and like for this is what his like fifth Grand or like fourth Grand Prix to be thrown into. He's experienced a lot. He's experienced a whole season of F1 in his very short F1 debut, because he's experienced the monsoons. He's experienced an amazing track in Suzuka, and then now he's experienced an absolute broiler in the Qatar GP.
and don't forget he experienced Singapore as well, and
Yeah, true. The humidity out there as well. Yeah, so he's done a lot. He's got a lot of XP points out of this one.
his resume is looking absolutely beautiful, especially for a driver who doesn't have a contract for next year. You know, he's so far ahead. I have to give it to him right now. That's pretty well done. Valiant effort as well. Well, to both Liam and Logan, valiant effort drives here. Actually, to all the drivers, because I mean, to drive through that conditions is just absolute madness. And I mean, if we think about it, right, before coming into this race, the FIA mandated that there's a mandatory 3 pit stops from each team, right? And the maximum you can drive on one set of tires is for 18 laps.
18 laps.
And which means that your stint also gets changed based on how many laps you've previously done on your tires, right? Because some drivers ran with the mediums for like 2 or 3 laps in their practice session, and now
which messed up their race strategy now, because you didn't plan for that, and then now it's become a thing, and now you're like, oh, I've already done 5 laps on these tires, and now I can only do 13, and then I have to pit.
Which was it's absolutely crazy.
Yeah, crazy scenes.
It was. Nico Hulkenberg, after that crash yesterday, came back a little bit weaker off. I think he had damage to his chassis as well. So he had to change out that, and as you can see, his performance in drop-off, it was there. It's a whole different car essentially that he had to drive for the next day, and he didn't seem to have any grip with it at around this track at all.
Yeah, Nico did struggle around Qatar quite a bit this weekend, and well, not even the weekend, because I think he actually had a pretty decent qualifying session, but he just, after that accident that he had no reason being in, and was an unfortunate addition to that sandwich, I don't know, he kind of, I mean, I wouldn't say he really rallied, because his teammate kind of outpaced him this weekend.
Yeah, he did.
Yeah. So it's one of those things where you're kind of like, I feel for Nico, because, you know, the car didn't feel the same, so he's now struggling to adjust to whatever chassis that they put onto the car. But yeah, he finished in P16, and that's really unfortunate. You know, points aren't awarded
forever
to anyone below, anyone outside of the P10.
Yeah. only there for those who can achieve that top 10 finish.
Mm-hmm.
Which I have another interesting idea that I would speak about later on. But before now, P15 Yuki Tsunoda, another again, didn't have a great race this weekend at all. I mean, he got lapped by Max by the end, as well as he also got lapped by Lando and almost by George, but George decided to take another pit stop. Or he had to take his last pit stop, which, I mean, that car is just not good, and Yuki's not having a great time in it. Although he is putting up P15, it's some of the worst results he's had. When he started the year off with like P11s, man. It's sad to see that he's dropped this far off. But
yeah, it's really tough. It really is tough because he had a relatively consistent early start of the season, and you're hoping that he was going to be able to step it into the points and be able to be consistent there, but unfortunately it really hasn't worked out for him.
Absolutely. P14 Kevin Magnussen, Haas, last Haas driving car. Hey, you know, it was spicy to see the strategies, right? The whole three stops made it quite interesting, and it shuffled the field up quite a bit because you don't know where anybody was really, because it was a lot to keep track of because people are always on different pace tires and so forth.
It really was. It really did make it complex because a lot of people were pitting it outside of what you would expect pit sequences and pit windows to be open with.
Yeah, it really did spice up the thing, and I think it made Sunday overall a lot more enjoyable to watch, especially because you got to see like Kevin sitting up in the top 10, and it was just like, is he here based off of pure merit alone, or is it just because there's other pit stops that's going into play? And it was a bit of a mind game. I think it was a mess in order to keep track of every driver, right? But if you're watching it alongside the stream, you'd be able to keep track of who all is going to be able to keep up overall with the race, and who the pseudo. We knew Max was going to be in P1, right? Anyone behind Max was really just, it was a filtering system that you had to play a big maths game.
I kind of expected both Mercedes to be behind Max Verstappen, but we already know what happened. You know, Lewis Hamilton crashed into George Russell, which would end up being great for Mercedes in the long run.
Oh yeah, definitely. P13, Alexander Albon. Let it be known that Alex led the race for like a few turns. Okay, he did lead the race.
I watched it. I was there. I saw it.
Yeah, and I think the race should have just ended right there and there with Alex winning the race. But I think that's just me being a little bit biased. But yeah, but it was beautiful to see Alex.
Sometimes you really just have to be just like, you know what, I want to buy these Thin Mints, and my uncle's not gonna say anything. It's like, where are my Thin Mints? It's like, you ain't never getting any anymore.
Yeah, I mean, he finished 10 seconds off of 10th place, right? Which means, it's 11, but he was so close, really. Yet so far away from scoring that last points paying position. If the drivers just ahead of him could have gotten quite a bit of penalties, which a few drivers actually did get a few penalties, it would have been a absolute mess. He could have gotten further ahead, which is it's sad for him, but good effort to at least get to P13 for himself. But let's go into a driver who didn't have the greatest of times. Pierre Gasly.
Pierre Gasly got way too many penalties, man. Like he struggled a lot to keep it on the track. I mean, it's just so unfortunate because he had a pretty decent drive. He was in a decent position. He was in a point scoring position, and then those penalties just rolled like a hammer. And yeah, it's just just not a great way to finish the race.
15 seconds of penalties served out to
15
Pierre,
seconds
guys.
is so
Guys,
much.
it's incredible of how much time lost that is, right? If we just go look at 15 seconds right now, bro, he'd easily be right next to Valtteri right now. He could easily be P9, just ahead of Joe, right there. P9, points secured for him, but he gained so much penalties that I honestly cannot believe. I mean, we can see here, Perez, Gasly received 5-second time penalties for track limits. Stroll and Albon each received 2 5 seconds. So Albon as well, he's a culprit, not a victim. 10 seconds of penalties. That means Albon could have actually been so much further right now had he just kept it in the line. Same with Pierre. That means 15 seconds, man. That's an astronomical amount of time lost, bro. And then we go on to the other driver, Lance Stroll, who also got another 10-second time penalty. For guys, in primary school you get taught, color within the lines. Sure, they're not white lines, but maybe in certain textbooks it could have been white lines. Most of the time it's black lines, but keep the colors in the lines, guys. I know I'm saying this. I'm not even an F1 driver here, but at their level they should be able to keep it in over race distance. But then again, this wasn't a normal race whereby you could say that temperatures were too much and the overall feed, Lance told us 20 laps to go, he had blurred vision. He could barely see straight, which I think is a very big concern. The FIA should definitely take better action, just to make sure.
They need to look into moving the race, because I don't think it can take place at that time. I think it's way too hot for the drivers.
Yeah, it's incredibly too hot for the drivers, man. To hurt them like that, we cannot do with those things. Right, Sergio Perez. Another 15-second time penalties for the man. Him and track limits can become best friends, right? Logan has his friend Barry R. Sergio Perez has track limits as his best friend. It's, if there's a track where they're going to enforce track limits, you best believe Sergio Perez is going to be talking to his bestie track limits right then and there.
Yep. And he will. It's just, he's whatever thing is going on right now that's making Perez struggle and not be able to get to grips with the car, but also just get to grips with just keeping it on the track. It's just he needs to reevaluate and just, I don't know if he needs to just try to not fight it so much. I don't know what he has to do, but his current approach is just not working.
I 100% agree. It really isn't working out for him so well.
Yeah, to be able to, because yes, you finished in the points, but when your teammate is winning a race and is finishing so much further up the track and you get lapped by your teammate, that's never really good. It never feels like that definitely isn't gonna help his psyche. And I know the team is probably looking at that and going, is this really the best option that we have? Because our best driver is always winning, and our next best driver, if something were to happen, our best driver had to crash or whatever, or has a bad pit stop, or has a failure or an engine failure or something, you should expect your other driver to be able to win the race. And unfortunately, Checo's not fulfilling that role.
He really isn't. And we even got Christian Horner apparently gave Sergio a warning, essentially, to say that his pace right now is not good at all. He's so far off of Max, and had there been an actual competitor to Max this year, I don't think they would have won the championship in terms of constructors. I think Max would have still won drivers, but constructors, it would be still a fight till the end, whereby you don't even know will Red Bull be able to. Because I mean, for Max to carry everything on his back is absolutely. It's really bad. You don't have that second driver as a support. I mean, uh, what Christian even emphasized that Perez has to desperately needs to step up. Oh, I can't even speak today. I mean,
Really, but man, I think the heat is really getting to me.
yeah, we experienced a little bit of that heat in Qatar, and we were destroyed by this stuff, right? I mean, Helmut Marko as well said that Perez's performance here was absolutely shocking, and he needs to improve by the end of 2023, right? I believe, like we've spoken previously and said, he has a clause that he can't become an AlphaTauri driver, right? But
Well, the contract says that that is not an option. So I guess the only other option would be to buy him out of his contract.
what about rather doing this, right? This is where my thing was. Let's say they put Liam into AlphaTauri, move Danny back up to the freaking Red Bull, and put Perez as a reserve driver. I don't know if his contract specifically says that he has to be a driver. I would assume that he is the main driver, but it has a point where he can't be demoted to AlphaTauri, which means he could possibly be moved to reserve driver and Danny just takes over from him if his performance is not up to par anymore. And I think, knowing Red Bull, by the end of this year, we'll probably get our answer of whether Checo is going to stay around at Red Bull or if he's going to be moved with, like how I say, he goes to reserve role and then he ends up being, and Danny moves up.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm not too sure if that's a potential option for Checo, but at this point, Red Bull's probably looking at it and thinking, if we can pull it off, we will. But I'm not too sure if Checo would go for that. I mean, I don't know who would, driving an F1 car to becoming a reserve driver, but unfortunately, he's not able to put it all together right now. He's just really struggling with the car. It's a combination of things, but that one I think is the biggest factor, is the fact that he's not able to get a handle on how the car manages its balance throughout corners.
Yeah, it really is. And moving on to the silent assassins of this weekend, bro. I gotta give them a round of applause, man. Come on. For Guan Yu Zhou to make up 10 positions. 10 positions in the race, bro.
It's 11 positions because, 10 positions because he started technically
19th because Lewis got knocked out there at the start. So
but then also Perez started from the pit lane, didn't he?
Yeah, Perez as well, and then Carlos wasn't in as well.
Yeah, so
he got given a few positions.
He got given a handful of positions, but here's the thing: he managed to make it stick, and he managed to make it count to the end because he finished P8, P9. I mean, come on, he grabbed 2 points for the team. That's really vital. That's really, I mean, I'm very happy for him, especially because he really needed this. Because he's been finishing just outside the points a little consistently, and he just needed to get grab those points in order to feel that extra motivation.
I mean, look, him and Valtteri's efforts have pulled them even closer to Williams' position right now. And I mean, you look at it, 23 points for Williams. They're now sitting on 16 points with Alfa Romeo. I think Audi is going to be looking at that and it's like, okay, maybe the drivers, if we give them something actually really good, that the drivers can do something with this vehicle, and they can be that quiet team that, the other teams weren't expecting to be racing, as well as the strategy got messed up for everyone, but it allowed him to capitalize on everything that went on within this race, which was a great move from him. Entirely.
Yep, I'm super proud of Guan Yu. I really am. I mean, he He showed a lot of consistency this weekend. I mean, went through his pit cycles really well, kept his nose clean, didn't get hit with too many track limit violations, didn't get a penalty, kept it clean and just stayed on track. I'm really happy. I'm happy to see the way he managed that race.
It was a well driven race from the man, as well as in his P8 his teammate Valtteri Bottas, both of them making silent
Silent
moves,
assassin.
silent assassins to steal away 6 points
Yeah,
in total from potential other drivers here. It's a really well done move by both of them, and it's beautiful to see that. They still have
especially
some of
on a
that
weekend.
motivation. Yeah.
No, especially on a weekend where Williams weren't able to score points. That's a really important thing, so they can close that gap and see if they can actually reel them in. Not good for Williams, but I mean, good for good for Alfa Romeo.
Yeah, I would say not good for Alex because that's Alex's points, right?
Yeah,
Then P7, P7, we're sitting with Esteban Ocon, who was
yeah,
the only Alpine driver to actually score points. Because just guess what, he managed to keep it within the lines. Okay, to
He
be
did.
fair, he did get like I think it was 2 track limit violations during the race, but then afterwards he kept it clean and kept racing on, right? It's also interesting to see the gaps you'll see, right? There's almost a full-on 20-second gap between Esteban and Fernando Alonso, right? Which is that's madness, dude. This whole pit stop strategy thing properly messed up the grid in terms of where everyone could potentially be sitting and or moving around in.
yeah. The mandatory pit stops are an interesting thing that we're going to get onto a bit later on, but it it really did shuffle up the order and make for some exciting racing. I mean, a lot of the drivers were saying it felt like 57 qualifying laps. I mean, I don't know. I don't know about you, but that seems very tough to me.
Oh yeah, it does. It's really hard because I mean, when you're pushing on a quali lap, you're really putting the maximum out of the car every single time. And now to do that consecutively for 57 laps,
Yeah,
that's grueling, bro. Like, it's usually
yeah,
the drivers go for a Sunday drive for the first stint, where they manage the pace, manage everything well, and then the last half of the race, they go on full attack mode, where they start to actually push themselves quite a bit. Now, them doing qualifying laps, lap after lap after lap after lap, it's an intense fight for them. I think next up, Fernando Alonso P6. This was a brilliant drive from Fernando, I will have to say. To come
yeah.
back after such a big slump that Aston Martins have, hopefully he can have better performances for the later part of the year, these last few races. But
Yeah, but I mean, he did also receive a penalty for that big slide that he happened to have, and then rejoining the track a little unsafely. So, you know, little lapses in concentration happen to everyone, even the one of the best in Fernando Alonso. That just proves how difficult this racetrack was to race at this weekend. I mean, several times he complained about it being so hot that he needed them to splash water on him, but they said that they couldn't do that because there's electricals and all sorts inside the car, so you can't just splash water on him. But they need to come up with some sort of solution. I know they have those vests that they have that are like these sort of like cooling vests, but they either need to run this race a lot later on in the year or just or
figure out air venting,
come up with some sort
ventilation.
of solution.
No.
Yeah, well, not even ventilation. I'm like give them like a cold, like those like gel cool vests sort of things.
Yeah, but here's the thing
Yeah,
about those things. It's gonna get very hot very fast, and now you basically
that's the
have
thing.
those.
And
the
then now
liquid.
you'll just be sitting in a hot jelly thing. So that's someone needs to invent a jelly that doesn't get hot.
Yeah, good luck doing that. I think they need to invent a method for during the pit stop, right, phase, for
Yeah.
the drivers to take take it off as well as then put a new one on within that pit stop phase. I know it's very difficult though. I mean, you're gonna have to squeeze in another person or two so that Fernando, once he gets the car in, it's legit just hook, drop, takes the thing off, grabs the next one, and it's just on. Then has to put his hands back on to manage the clutch, drop that. That's easily gonna add on like in a second or two to the pit stop phases, which I don't think is gonna be a manageable thing.
Hey, and we saw some really quick pit stops this weekend.
Oh, McLaren, 1.8 seconds for their pit stop. That's incredibly fast. That's like Red Bull level fast in terms of...
That is Red Bull level fast.
Oh, pit stop phases, right? The one and sole Ferrari driver.
Yes, indeed.
Got assisted. You know what was crazy, right? Is usually on a Sunday race, we will always get some Ferrari voice comms, right? But did you notice something? We didn't get a single thing of Ferrari telling Charles, okay, plan A. Fair enough, there was only one plan. Keep putting every 18 laps, right?
Well, yeah. I think this really benefited Ferrari because there was no way of them effing up the strategy because they weren't able to actually have to plan it. It was every 18 laps the car comes in to get a tire change. Okay, cool. And they just did that. And it really benefited them. But also, the fact that the smoothest of operators was at the grid, operating in the background, making sure that the strategy was going flawlessly to make sure that Charles Leclerc finished in P5.
I think was beautiful from Carlos's performance as a strategist, as well as like over one of the weekends I heard someone say, fire Carlos as a driver and put him as an engineer at Ferrari because
no thank you, no thank you.
He's gonna provide great strategies there. But I was just I cannot have. I need to have him there racing the car at least, because then he can come up with the strategy and apply his strategy at the exact same time. And he just has to ignore everyone else. He's just like hopes Ferrari can give him a fast car, and then he does his strategy himself.
No. The thing all Ferrari fans have.
The biggest hope. We call it hopium. They are hopium and copium. The Ferrari fans, the Tifosi, have large canisters at home that get filled up regularly. I'm pretty sure that should be some very expensive gases to have. Is hopium and copium. But when you have Carlos, at least you have some faith. As he is his greatest strategist right now. And
well, I mean, he's the best that Ferrari have to offer because Ferrari can't seem to do it themselves. For them, it's like, they're. I don't know. It feels like they don't spend enough time trying to strategize, like trying to actually assess their strategy, because every weekend, something bad happens on the strategy, and then the next weekend something bad happens on the strategy, and then the next weekend something bad happens on the strategy. So at what point are they going to say, okay, we need to assess this and figure out what the root cause of why the strategy keeps going wrong, and then attack that and fix it?
I 100% agree. I think it might even be a thing that Fred's going to look at for next year. It's a very, very far away time to look at fixing a problem, which is what I think is just quite a simple fix. It just looks like they're not watching the races at all, and all they have to do is put eyes on it, and maybe even just go hire a random person hire one of us, and we'll tell you guys, look, okay. And then if we look at the data and we see, okay, this is what's gonna happen here, and we're like, okay, cool, guys, Carlos, we're watching the race now. Okay, no, you're gonna need this tire most likely. This boy's flying with it. You should be able to fly on those tires as well. Hard tires, soft tires, whatever it is. It shouldn't be as hard as Ferrari is making it look.
I agree with you. I mean, I mean, it seems like all the other teams are able to get the strategy better than Ferrari, and Ferrari keeps seeming to mess it up. So I don't know what they need to do in order to fix it, but they can't keep going into every weekend expecting them to not be competitive when they have such poor strategy.
No, I 100% agree. Right, that started off us off at the top 5. P4, George Russell. Okay, can we talk about
No.
the drive this man had this weekend? Right, like, damn. Starts P17 of the race after the first lap shenanigans that happened to him. Right.
Yep.
Albeit, safety car did save him. Right.
It did. It did.
It saved him. It got him up into position where he was the first driver with the most amount of laps he could complete right now.
Yeah.
So he could go.
I mean,
18 laps flat out.
The accident took him onto a different strategy, which kind of ended up working out this time around. But that was also because he was fighting really hard in order to put the car where he needed to in order to be to fit, essentially damage limitate, because at that point you really have to just reduce the amount of damage that is going to be inflicted, make sure that you get ahead of Ferrari because the constructors are really close, and then just trying to get onto the podium, but unfortunately didn't have enough steam in order to do that because those McLarens are rocket ships.
No, I don't even think it was the McLarens being rocket ships there. The part I think was beautiful drive overall. That strategy switch up was a great idea, but the whole point was that he shouldn't have gone onto the softs at the end there, right? Mercedes saw other drivers on the softs, right? And this is where the sprint should have taught them a very hard lesson, right? That
the
softs are gonna drop off a massive cliff, and it's as quick as one lap. You do one lap and you start losing pace. Think about this. George was well over 20 seconds ahead of Charles Leclerc after that pit stop, right? Or I think it was more like 10. He was 20 seconds from Lando, 10 seconds ahead of Charles. He dropped to 4 seconds. 4 seconds. At one moment, it was almost 2 seconds, right? But then Charles just didn't have the pace to keep pushing after George. And I think that was the biggest misplay for Mercedes. I think if they just slapped on his other old set of mediums.
Yeah, I agree with that, yeah. Another set of mediums might have made the difference and been able to put him on the podium.
He would have caught Lando.
Yeah.
I think he could have at least get behind Lando again and be a lot closer in terms of that. So this was, I think, overall Mercedes misplay in terms of strategy, where they also need to go back and reanalyze the board, because every time a safety car comes out, every other team seems to get the jump on them in terms of tire strategy, and they leave their drivers out on old tires that's just not going to help them fight at all, or they go for the safety car switch but it doesn't work out in the end here. Singapore was an exception, because they actually planned that whole strategy out entirely, that they wanted to keep those tires alive, those new sets of mediums for George and Lewis to hunt down people.
Yeah.
So
but also because there's a high percentage of there actually being a safety car, so it's less of a risk, whereas you're not sure if there'll be an accident at Qatar, which we did see, I mean, from the opening lap. So the fact that George was collected in that incident and managed to bring it back into P4 is really impressive for him.
It really was a beautiful drive from George to 17th to 4th. Well played. That's, as Mercedes, after your driver has an incident like that, I think that's a pretty good recovery drive for your driver.
Yeah, absolutely good recovery drive.
That just shows. It actually shows that Mercedes is still very competitive right now. If you think about it, to climb back up that grid.
Yeah.
So,
I mean, a lot of it was also interesting pit sequences, because his pit sequence strategy was a little bit off their timing, essentially. So that came in that did come into play and that made a difference. I don't know. I don't know if there's what exactly caused it, but the fact that he was able to maybe run a bit longer, maybe because he jumped onto the hards immediately after the accident with Lewis. So potentially being able to run that long made him be able to secure a position higher.
Mm. For me, the
Because during the pit sequence, because during the pit sequences, everybody got shuffled up a little bit, and during his pit sequence, he then used the fresh rubber in order to chase down cars that now had degrading tires.
yeah, and for me, what I found quite interesting was that I actually think at the start of the race, the softs were going to be quite amazing, right? Because the track wasn't rubbered in yet, right? Because there's still a lot of dust that came up over the night, and so the softs would have been quite beneficial to drive on. Not as well as great as the mediums, because the mediums showed that they had quite a lot of pace. And we saw with Sergio Perez starting on the hards, it was not a great feel on the hards, right? A horrible strategy to start on the hards. And what happened was we saw later on in the race, once everyone switched over to the mediums became obviously the faster tires. And then
the mediums were the option,
And then it actually got to a point where the hards were faster than the mediums, right? Which was a very interesting thing, because if you looked at it previously, the hards, when drivers were lapping with the hards, they were over a second slower than anyone on the mediums, that's a considerable drop in pace.
Yeah, that's a huge drop.
And I mean, I'm pretty sure the drivers had their rhythm settled in, everything, just needed to warm up the tires, but then the tires weren't gripping, they weren't feeling it at all. But the moment the race got into the later phases, the hards just lit up. They became alive. Max started putting in faster laps with the hard tires, right? Which means that, one, obviously the cars got lighter as the race progressed. But the tires must have gotten faster once the track got rubbered in after that. And
yes, that's a point I did not take into consideration. That is a big thing to take into consideration there.
So this is where I think Mercedes were thinking about this, right? They saw that the track was getting faster, so they thought, okay, let's put the softs on for George, and he should be able to hunt them down with 7 laps to go, right? But the problem came in the fact that I think the track was too hot, and the amount of rubber that the track was eating off of the tires was too much for the softs to even handle themselves.
Well, the softs kind of, I mean, it feels like as soon as George put those softs on and he came out, it basically started disintegrating from that moment.
I think it was after 2 laps, and then it disintegrated into.
But that's a ridiculously short period of time.
It really was. I mean, you're lapping 1 minute 20 seconds. That's 5 minutes, essentially. Let's call it 5. 5 minutes, and now your tires is gone. Is it 5? No, 3 minutes. Something like that. And your tires are now gone.
And then now what? Now you're a sitting duck, or you have to go into pit again, but you've only got a limited amount of tires, so I don't know. I'm not saying that there shouldn't be mandatory pit stops in Formula One, because in all honesty, it was a really exciting and fun race.
Yeah.
But I don't know if this is the right way to make it happen. It's just strange.
It is strange. But let's move on. I think we've had enough talks about George Russell. We'll come back onto mandatory pit stops just now. But Lando Norris, probably my favorite driver of the race this weekend. He was incredibly fast, as well as incredibly cheeky with his team.
Incredibly cheeky. He was a naughty boy.
He really was. Especially once he came out of the pits.
Yeah. And it's like, okay, cool. I'm quick. And it's like, so you're gonna let me through? And it's basically, no, we're not letting you through. And then he sets 2 fastest laps.
And he sets back to back. You know,
Back
and
to
it's
back.
just like he sent a freaking
It's
message.
it's like, come on, let me go. Just let me go, please.
I mean, I'll even read to you what happened there, right? Lando's engineer
Yep.
said, "We're going to hold position, bring it home." And Lando was like, "Huh? Why would we do that? We have a big gap. I'm clearly a lot quicker. Let me through. Let me go." And then he puts in the fastest lap, and his engineer said, "No, we are still holding." And then fastest lap again, and it's just like, guys, let me through. I want to
And
go.
then they come on radio and say, George Russell has got a set of soft tires, so we're trying to
Protect.
because we're wary of George. It's like, oh, so you're wary?
Yeah, the level of
Mm.
cheekiness he had.
So you're wary?
Yo,
Why don't you let me through then?
exactly that. And I mean, I think Lando, that cheekiness was one of my favorite moments from the race. Because I mean, like,
Yeah.
to talk to your engineer like that was, hey, my boy.
Yeah, that's the absolute cheek to talk to an engineer like that, and then to go on to get those two fastest laps and just be so blasé about it as well. Just like, oh yeah, I'm fast.
Yeah, of course. That you know, it's actually showing, right? We said it earlier. Lando's getting annoyed that his teammates are ahead of him, right? And we're seeing it here now. Lando's like, I'm faster than Piastri, guys. Let me through. You know,
Yeah,
even with the sprint race, he wanted to go past Piastri and try go for the win for the race, but the team was like, obviously Piastri did have a lot more pace I won't say yesterday.
on the Saturday. Yeah,
On the Saturday, and it showed because he won the race. But you could see Lando was frustrated with that, and he was just there like, I am faster. Let me be.
let me through. Come on, guys. Come on. What are we doing here?
Right, I can easily do this. Because I mean, I think that 4-second gap that was there, I think Lando to Max Verstappen, I think Lando could have pushed into Max to try and get at least a look at Max's behind to see like, hey, I know you're a 3-time world champion, my boy, but like, do you mind if I get a win? Just one, maybe? No?
So
Okay.
what do I have to do in order to win? And it's like, no idea. You just have to beat Max Verstappen, which is going to require
A lot.
some sort of extra spiritual event to occur with a meteor shower and a giant comet flying in the sky, and you have to make 3 wishes.
It's gonna be some miracle wishes you're hoping for there. And yeah, Lando, it's a wonderful drive from him. And I mean, we even saw in the post-race cool down room, both of them were on the floor. They're like, damn.
Yeah. No, I mean, but genuinely, like afterwards during the interviews, like they were absolutely drenched, drenched, dripping consistently. Like, you know, like I don't know if you've ever been in a sauna, like, and you sit right by, and you sit in the sauna for like 15, 20 minutes, and then you step out and you're just drenched.
Mm-hmm.
Like that's what they looked like, and it didn't look like it was going to stop anytime soon. I'm sure all of those drivers jumped immediately into an ice bath.
Oh no, they definitely did. I think we saw a couple drivers just dump water. Like, yeah, Lando was it? Lando got to the podium thing, cracked it open,
And then
just straight dumped it on his head. He was like, yeah, that's it. I'm just trying to cool down, man. I wouldn't even be surprised if after the champagne nonsense that Lando hopped into the ice bath immediately. It would make a lot more sense that to get that extremely wet. But I mean, then again, they're sweating 2-3 kgs worth of water out of them during that race.
It's a ridiculous amount of weight that you're losing just going round in a circle. Well, there are multiple corners and all that, but just you're going around a racetrack, and the abrasion, the heat in the air, all of those factors, the hot engine, all of that. Look, they're just sitting in that sauna and cooking, essentially.
I mean, we even saw it from George Russell, right? He entered the pits.
Yeah.
Every time he entered the pits, cracked his visor open. and
Yep.
just tried to cool down. I mean, on the straights, he stuck his hands on top in 8th gear on
Yeah.
top of the wheel, not even holding onto it. It's just they're like, whew, okay, cool. Let's get back to the race. I was just like, damn. Okay, like
Yeah.
that's a
That's
casual
what you know.
flex. That's a flex and a half. Like, I'm going over well over 300 kilometers an hour here. Let me take my
I'm not
hands
even
off
gonna
the
hold this
wheel.
thing in public.
Like,
I'm just gonna look at you like, hey, what's up? When are we going?
hey, bro, it's absolute madness to see that. And I mean, Lando even did it quite a few times where he'd just go and crack his visor open just for some fresh air and close it
Yeah.
immediately.
I think most drivers actually ended up doing that because it was just outrageously hot there. I mean, I think the track temperature was something like between
35,
35 and 30,
6. Yeah.
like 33 and 36 or something.
Yeah.
That's a ridiculous temperature. But just the surface of the track, that's not okay, man.
It's absolute madness there. And to kick off the second highest spot on the podium, Oscar Piastri. This boy he left Qatar with a heavy bag, you know.
Yes, he did.
Yeah, you know what's funny is I saw on Twitter as well. His mom cracked open 2 bottles of wine because he won the sprint race. I was just like, damn.
Yep.
How crazy is this?
That-
Like, damn.
That's exactly the kind of love you want, bro.
Bro, she's just like, yeah, no, I'm drinking to my boy winning
Yep.
this freaking race,
We
bro.
are
Like,
celebrating tonight.
Sure, it's not an official race, but it's a official sprint race, which is still counts for something. And I mean, beautiful drive. I mean, at the end, Max had to come in for his last pit stop, and Piastri managed the gap. Like at one point, Max was well over 10 seconds ahead of Piastri, and look at it now,
Yep.
4.8. He managed to catch up
That
to
was a
Max
really-
really well
Yeah.
with that last bit of pit stops, and it was a fun mini game to play. Who's going to pit just now? And then because there were so many drivers who were offset from each other, that left us in a mad zone to say, where are you gonna end? But I think this weekend Oscar had a beautiful weekend. He definitely partied. He's partying it up today and tomorrow at least. There's no chance he doesn't go and celebrate getting a victory as well as a P2 in the race.
I would say it's a complete and total weekend for Oscar Piastri because, you know, to be able to have that taste of that victory, but yes, it wasn't a full Grand Prix, but the fact that he was able to taste that victory and actually be competitive and be able to fend off other drivers. I mean, there were a lot of really tenacious moments in his drive this weekend, and I'm very happy that he's actually become like the sacrifice and the decision to bring him in has actually been worth it.
It really has been worth it. And you know, with both of these drivers, their fight right now, McLaren's sitting only 11 points behind Aston Martin right now after that drive. So that means next weekend at Qatar, they're definitely getting ahead of Aston Martin, provided that they get the P2 and P3 finishes that they be getting right now, which that's crazy. But to also think about it, if Lando finishes ahead of Charles again, he's going to catch him incredibly fast. Lando's sitting P7th in the championship, 136 points. Charles is P6, 145 points. I kid you not, end of the season, Lando is sitting possibly P4 in the championship, ahead of Fernando Alonso, who has 183 points. I think Lando can... okay, that's a very hard stretch, but I still think...
That's a. I mean, there are 5 races to go, and let's assume that he's able to maximize the pace, or maximize the pace. Would he be able to consistently get enough points to be able to close that gap?
So you see, provided that if Fernando Alonso doesn't score any points for the rest of these 5 races, right? Lando only needs to get 47 points to get ahead of Fernando. Which means if he's getting second place, right? he needs to get it at least 3 more second places to get ahead of Fernando Alonso right now. Obviously, provided Fernando doesn't get any more points. Which
Yeah,
I don't think that's feasible.
I don't think it's going to work out for Aston Martin. It looks like they're going to get caught.
They definitely do look like they're going to get caught in terms of it. 100% in the constructors.
Yeah.
But I mean, George Russell's even at a bigger. Might be at a big threat because if Oscar keeps scoring these second positions, he's slowly catching up to George. Oscar's sitting at 83 points. George is 132. It is still a far stretch in terms of points, but he can still climb up the championship with that. And I mean, Lando easily ends the year with P5, and that's just it, man. But
Yeah,
I have to give it to him. Well done, Oscar. That was a.
Piastri has been super impressive this whole season, actually.
He really has. But let's go on to the man, the myth, our current legend, our three-time world champion, Max Verstappen. And I mean, to get a three-time world championship on a Saturday, not even on a Sunday like everyone else, he follows the footsteps of his father-in-law, Nelson Piquet, to win a championship on a Saturday. Wow, what a drive! What a
I mean,
drive.
technically not his father-in-law as yet, but
Yeah.
you know, his yeah. Let's just keep it at that father-in-law thing because I did interrupt you for absolutely no reason.
No. It was definitely. You have a point there. It's not. He's not engaged or anything yet.
Yeah, but I mean, like either way, is that the interesting thing now is who's the more impressive world champion at the dinner table now? Now you've got Max and you've got Nelson. What do you do?
Yeah.
Who's the main man?
Yeah. Is Max at this point still gonna try and impress Nelson? That's like, huh? I was like, bro. I mean, I'm a three-time world champion. I also matched you at winning the championship on a Saturday. You know,
I mean,
it definitely adds more things in common with each other.
Yeah, they have a lot of things in common. Many things in common. And
Kelly,
yeah, but I mean, here's the thing: like Max has actually had such a sensational season. He's been absolutely flawless. And anytime he can, anytime there's an opportunity to win, Max is going to win it. And it's really admirable. I'm really happy to see him win his third world title. It's impressive. It's one of those things where you're kind of like, yep, it's that era of domination that we're sitting in yet again. But you know, the other teams are starting to come and push back into, like McLaren right now is starting to look really competitive, and then hopefully Mercedes are able to bring it to them next season.
Hopefully, Mercedes.
As well as McLaren, obviously.
Mercedes, bro, McLaren's bringing it to Red Bull next season. What you talking about, Mercedes? Mercedes, maybe. We'll have to see what they have up their sleeve for 2024. But I mean, Max's drive this year has been absolutely phenomenal. I think the only thing, Singapore is the worst race he had this year, really. And if we count out just Singapore alone, his worst race finish was just second place for the whole year. Second place is his worst finish. I mean, and we're supposed to get into the part of the year where people are going over the allocated engines. So you're gonna start to see that 10-place grid penalties coming out for drivers.
Yep.
That
is very true. That is very true. Those penalties are coming.
They're coming, and we're at Qatar already. You know, most teams take that 10-place grid penalty at Brazil, and potentially between Brazil, Mexico, and we have what else do we have? We have Qatar, Mexico, Brazil, Las Vegas, and Abu Dhabi. You know, I think a lot of drivers might try to save it for Las Vegas, where we've got that very long straight. You want to have that fresher engine for that long straight.
That depends on how long the rest of these engines currently last.
Oh yeah, that it definitely does depend on the drivers there, but overall, I think Max has done phenomenal. I know we've said it many times. You know, the racing is boring because Max runs away with the championship and or the race itself. But to think, you have to think about it. What level of a driver must you be at in order to run away with a championship in F1, right? It's absolute madness. You have to be one of the most next level drivers to possibly even hit the milestones that he's hit, right?
Yep. I mean, 49 race wins. That's insane. I mean, he is he is fast becoming one of the most consistent drivers on the grid, and honestly, he deserves his flowers.
He really does deserve his flowers, 100%. But we've got the next race also coming up for ourselves in Qatar, right? And I hear a little bird tweeting around saying Mercedes are bringing a new floor to test whether where they're going for the car in 2024 is the right direction.
Well, let's hope this flow works because I'm not gonna lie, seeing that team not do well is actually really jading. Because you, after you watch it actually be really good for a long period of time, not seeing like at least the drivers be competitive is nerve-wracking to say the least.
Yeah, definitely.
But I think the car will most likely be something more along the veins of how Red Bull have designed a lot of their package. So I think more and more cars are going to potentially need that direction.
Mm-hmm. I agree. I think so too. But it's good for them to actually test with the moment that they have now. The only problem I see for Mercedes is that Kota is a sprint race as well.
It is. And if the floor doesn't work, that's going to be bad because then you've got your whole weekend stuck with a really bad floor. Because there's basically only one practice yet again.
Well, look, I don't think it's end of the world because the thing is, they do the one practice there, right?
Yeah.
And I think they're gonna just put the floor on someone like George, or no, not George, Lewis. Have him test it out. See, does he like it at all, right? They're not in park ferme. They can still swap out parts however they feel.
Yes, no, fair.
If Lewis doesn't feel like the part is worth it and is actually going in the right direction, he could easily say, no, please put on the old floor and let's get further testing at Brazil or Mexico, where it's not going to be a sprint race, and we can just get more practice runs in with that new floor and get in that data to see is it the right spec for them.
Yeah, I think it's going to be super important for them to get that data so they're able to see whether they're going in the right direction. Mercedes need to be going in the right direction for next season because they've only got a small window of time to get Lewis's 8th World Championship. And, you know, although they do have George Russell who they can back their future on. So, you know, they do have time, but you also want to be able to be competitive as soon as possible because you don't want to let your competitors run away with it and continue to develop a car that's going to keep running away with it.
No, 100%. Because, I mean, with McLaren, next year they're going to be competitive. I promise you that now. McLaren, I believe they'll be.
I don't do the Ferrari fan and live in hope. I'm just going to sit here and I'm going to wait until after testing because I've seen enough nightmares in testing to know that I can't just expect greatness. I mean, one time we came to a race with no brakes and I don't know about you, but the drivers kind of need brakes to stop the car. So
no,
I mean,
I'm using my imagination to stop the car. You know, just like, oh no, stop now.
I will stop the car using my imagination. Telekinesis. Oh man.
Yeah.
So I'm holding my excitement for McLaren until like a little bit later on because I don't want to live in in that delusional world of Ferrari fans because it's scary over there, bro. It's scary.
I 100% agree. But the other thing is, it's just it brings fun to think about the idea that they can be challenging.
Yeah. Like I mean, I think about it a lot. It's one of those things where you're like, okay, who do you want to win a world championship, Lando or Oscar? And it's like,
Ooh, Lando, easy decision for me, Lando. Oscar's done great performances, but Lando deserves it more. I believe in my boy Lando, and I want him.
Why does Lando deserve it more?
Why Lando? Because he's gotten the car to this point, essentially by himself, right? Sure, I won't say, okay, I can't say 100% by himself. Danny did help develop the car, as well as Sainz helped develop the car over the years. But Lando's been the main man at McLaren, and why should McLaren not allow Lando to win the championship? I know there's no team orders, but in those moments where you see, I think Lando's consistency is going to be better than Oscar's. I mean, we could go and look at the actual drivers' championship right now. There's a reason why Lando's still ahead of Oscar in the championship, right? It's because in those moments when the car wasn't as great, Lando was still gaining points for the team, right? Lando's got that higher level consistency. Oscar's only started showing his brilliance now, later on in the season. We cannot forget that, right?
Yeah. No, we can't. But also, we also have to take into consideration that he's a rookie.
Yeah.
He's a rookie that took a year off driving. He was out of driving for a year. I think that there's something special about that kid, man. He is a really quick driver, man. It's just I like Oscar a lot, and I'm not gonna lie, the Max Verstappen breaking trophy situation still rubs me the wrong way.
That's Lando Norris for you, man. That's the boy.
Nah, I still don't like it. So I mean, it's just a really personal thing. It's just like he acted like it doesn't matter. Later on, he did correct himself, but it's one of those things that you just like, don't act like a dick, dude, because you don't have to.
Yeah, no, I hear you out entirely there. But let's move on to the last topic for today. You want to say your thoughts? If you have any last thoughts?
No. We can definitely move on because we definitely should.
Yeah, I agree. Last thoughts for today. I think mandatory pit stops, right? The 3 mandatory pit stops is like an 18 lap. Obviously, we can modify how many laps it is. I think it's a fun idea that we could use, that FIA could use to spice up some races, right? Not all. I'm saying maybe at like maximum 2 races for the whole year, right? Just to spice it up a little, where it's not going to be as exciting. I mean, let's go and look at some of the races we've had this year. Just click on Max's name here, right? Somewhere like, where would be a fun place to go?
My word, look at that record.
Yeah, just pole position.
So
left,
1
right.
1 1 1 1 1 1 1 1 1 1 1 1 5 1 1 1 1 1 1.
Yeah, I mean, let's go somewhere like Belgium could be a fun thing to just throw the drivers into a weird pit stop strategy thing whereby you can throw them around. I would like to say Jeddah, Saudi Arabia, could be another interesting place because it's a high-speed track where you could essentially force the drivers out doing quali lap after quali lap after quali lap, which would be a little bit more exciting to see instead of having them do a snooze fest. Or maybe, okay, you see, this is the cuck one, is to say Singapore, right? Because I'm sorry, Singapore, the first 40 laps of Singapore still rubbed me the wrong way, right? I think we could have had a feistier and spicier race.
Processions. I hate processions. Well, like, I'm not saying that maybe the strategy doesn't work for having mandatory pit stops, but I'm saying it just looked really useful for competitive driving. That's all I want to say. So if the FIA are listening, hey guys, that's kind of a good idea and it's really interesting. Maybe you need to work on the time variance or whatever, but that's a really cool idea.
You know what the bigger part to spice it up, right? Is what they should do is tell the teams there's gonna be 2 races this year, whereby you will have to do mandatory a minimum of three pit stops mandatory, and there'll be a tire how long you can sit on a specific stint for, right? It gets told to the teams, but they don't implement it the until the end of Saturday, right? So that Saturday hits, right? All the qualifying is done. There's no more qualifying anything. You've used the tires that you've used. Bam. Now it's been implemented that, oh yes, this race it's going to happen. And then now the teams will be like, oh shoot, our whole strategy that we built, it's kind of been for nothing. And we need to think up about a new strategy for the race. It puts more pressure on them to build up this new strategy. And it brings the entertainment for us as the fans so that we can see something more exciting happen constantly. I mean, you could clip so many events. There were so many, like, overtakes don't necessarily mean it's more exciting, but boy is it fun when we see 3 drivers trying to overtake each other, or 2 drivers trying to overtake one driver who's defending from the load of them. So I think it could be something that could be worth looking at, especially around a track like maybe Singapore. Please don't be an early racetrack like Australia or Japan, because Europe's gonna cry, man. I don't need to wake up that early to deal with a mandatory 3 lap pit stop.
No. But here's the thing. The problem is that when races happen that early in the morning and it's a procession, that's really tough to stay awake to.
Oh yeah, that it will be. You know, you have to get out that cup of coffee for it to stay awake, and it's not always fun like that. But then, yeah. So, ladies and gentlemen, we've at least come to the end of today's podcast episode. Hope you guys will join us more for the live streams that we do on twitch.tv at the late _ breakers, as well as you can find us on Instagram, Facebook, TikTok as well, where we have a lot of content for you there, where we have some of our laps that we do around in the game, so you can come there and enjoy some moments with us there. So I think that's gonna end this. We're gonna see you guys in the next episode for episode 6.
Cheers.
Cheers.